All right, guys, can we start the session? Am I audible to all? Guys, am I audible to all of you? Can we start the session? Yes, okay, all right. So, right, okay. So, we will wait for 5 minutes so that some more participants also will join. Okay. So, guys, can we start the session? Yes, okay. So today we will be talking about how you're going to handle situations and the questions which are related to policy implementation challenges. So guys, it's around 30-35 sessions. Now you will feel like it is repetition because almost all the structures and the concepts we have discussed. So out of 50 different types of questions that we planned, it's around 35. And in that 50 also, the structure remains the same, 7 to 8 types or 7 to 10 types. And we have covered that. So what we can do is we can go faster. If you see the session, how we progressed out of the 2.5 hours, initially I used to discuss for 1 hour and you discuss for 1 hour, 1.5 hour, right? But now it is now came down to 25 to 30 minutes of my discussion, and the 2.5 hour remain the same where you are discussing more. So those who were shy in the beginning, those who are not coming forward and discussing, sitting behind, without even the camera turned on. But now it's very good to see that these guys are coming forward and discussing and getting actively involved. So, guys, let's continue like this. And in the coming sessions also, my role will come down. And then we will have the one-to-one sessions where we will have the interactions after the mains result. So let's continue. Let's see how you're going to handle the questions which are related to the policy implementation challenges. Now, if you see, the policy formulation is very important, but what is a real test? The real test of governance lies in how effectively policies are implemented. So who's going to do that? It is a civil servant who's going to, navigate a variety of challenges, which include the bureaucratic inefficiencies, resource constraints, right? Economic hurdles, the fund challenges, and resistance from public or the stakeholders. And you are the ones who are going to ensure that the policies are executed smoothly and achieve their intended goals. So the thing is that they will definitely check your capacity, your capability to do this, and you need to show certain qualities like whatever we have discussed in the previous sessions, leadership and decision making skills and everything to the board. So that's exactly we are going to discuss. And even in my interview also, I was asked how I will overcome various implementation challenges. So guys, it's very, very important to demonstrate, that you think very critically, and you can think critically about the obstacles that you can face to effective execution of policies. And also you need to be in a position to propose solutions to address those. So we will focus on this. You won't face much problem here. These all are ready-made answers. You just repeat the script. That's all what you need to do. Okay, so I hope you can. Just 1 minute. Let me share the screen. Can you see the screen now? No? Okay, now can you see the screen? Perfect. All right. So, guys, let's start the session. Let's start with the implementation challenges itself. See, when it comes to policy implementation, which involves, putting policy decision into practice, taking, formulation of policy is not a big deal. It is easy, though there are certain other things which are involved, which we already discussed, but implementation is even more difficult. That's a part of executive and you are part of executive. And this process is often met with various challenges. And let's look at the challenges: bureaucratic inefficiencies, resource constraints, including economic or the fund management and other things, stakeholder resistance, coordination issues. Okay, so let's start one by one. I'll give you brief idea about each of these. When we talk about bureaucratic inefficiencies, you need to have an idea about this. The government processes are often very slow, because of very complex administrative procedures, which can basically delay the implementation of policies. And civil servants must work to streamline process and reduce, this red tapeism to improve efficiency. So that's something which you need to be aware of. Coming to resource constraints, many policies require significant financial, human, and technological resources. So a lack of resources can hinder the effective execution of any policies, right? So resource is something which is very important if you need to implement something. I can talk anything without any resource, but whatever I talk, if I need to implement, I need resource, right? So again, particularly in sectors like healthcare, without infrastructure, you can't do anything. Without doctors, nurses, without paying them, they won't come, right? Education, again, quality teachers is required, in infrastructure is required. Again, infrastructure development, for example, airport and other things, all these requires so much of resources, and there is no compromise on that. Now, next is about stakeholder assistance. Guys, policy implementation often involve multiple stakeholders, any policy. It could be government agencies, private sector players, and public, right? So resistance from these stakeholders who may not agree with the policy or feel threatened by the policy, it can create obstacles in its implementation process. Now, coming to the coordination issues, when you're implementing the policies, it often requires coordination between various government departments and agencies, and this is where the biggest hurdle comes. So poor coordination can lead to delays, miscommunication, and inefficiencies in execution of policies. You communicate to one department, they keep it there for a long time. Finally, they will communicate that this is not the department where it should have come. And then you will realize that it is to the another department, and then that much time is gone, and then you are going to give it to them. There also the problem of red tapeism, that cycle keep on continuing. Now, let me give you an example. Let's suppose you are asked how you would implement a healthcare policy in rural area, right? How you're going to implement a healthcare policy in a rural area. What I can say is, see, first you need to understand the resource constraints and then talk about bureaucratic inefficiency and propose solution like that, okay? And long-term perspective also. So one of the biggest challenge in implementing healthcare policies in rural areas, the lack of infrastructure and trained medical personnel. So now we were discussing so much about healthcare, and I've given so much of information about this, the solutions about this, different dimensions we have discussed. If you combine all the sessions that we have taken, you get a lot of informations, right? Now, bureaucratic delay in approving healthcare facilities and supplies can also slow down the process. Okay, and to address these challenges, you can say, I would streamline approval processes and ensure that resources are allocated efficiently to areas with the greatest need. You gave a perfect answer. Similarly, in a law enforcement situation, policy implementation challenges could include ensure that new crime prevention strategies are adapted across all departments, or overcoming resistance from officers to new training programs, etc. For example, if you're an IPS officer, you may need to implement a community policing initiative that require buy-in from local law enforcement officers and community leaders. Yes or no? So these are the things that we need to have an idea. Again, you need to practice on it. We'll see more examples. So we'll discuss this for. Okay, now structuring your answer. See, it's the same structure that we discussed before. Identify the challenge, analyze the impact, propose the solutions, and always ensure the sustainability part. So let's get into the details. Whenever you answering any questions, you need to have the structure. Why? Because they are not expecting the answer for that question. They're expecting certain qualities from you. So every question that you have answered to them, make sure that you reveal what the qualities that they're expecting. So structuring your answer will help you. That's why we are identifying the categories of questions and we are structuring it. Okay. So here, this is what you can follow. Identify the challenge. There is no need for me to explain this again. You know this, we have discussed it multiple times. Start by defining the specific challenge that could, come in implementation of the policy. And this could include bureaucratic delays, lack of resources, or resistance from stakeholder. Now, if you're not getting in that specific context, the problem is you can take any one of this and fill it. Okay, so analyze the impact. Then, so explain how the challenges affects the implementation of policy or the process. Does it delay service delivery? Does it result in resources being used inefficiently? Does it lead to stakeholder pushback or anything? Try to identify that. Okay, and then propose the solutions. After you analyzing the impact, propose the solutions to address the challenge. So this might involve, streamlining approval process, reallocating resources, or building stakeholder consensus, like that. Let's see the specific question and we will see. Now I'm generalizing. Now, then ensure sustainability. So that's the final step. Emphasize how your solution will ensure that the policy is implemented effectively for the long term. And this could include establishing monitoring system for long-term continuous stakeholder engagement, all those. So now with this itself, the structure which I've given to you, the sentences and the words which I've given to you, will you be able to form answer for any question in general if you are getting? Even if it is a specific one, will you be able to fit into that? Yes. Okay. Now one example. If you're asked to how you will implement a policy aimed at improving rural education. So you're going to implement a policy aimed at rural education. What you need to do? Identify the challenge, analyze the impact, solution, and sustainability. So here, one of the major challenge in implementing this policy is the lack of qualified teachers in rural area. You can take any other reason also. You can identify any other challenge also, but the steps remain the same, the process remains the same. Now here, you set the context. Now you're going to analyze the impact of lack of qualified teacher, and then you propose solution connected to the problem that you have discussed and sustainability also. That's how it works. So then they will ask, isn't that other one is a problem? Yes, that is also a problem, but this is a primary problem for me. Okay, so there can be different problems. You can bring in infrastructure. I'm giving example. I can give you multiple examples. So this will affect the quality of education and reduces the impact of the policy. So to address this, I would propose recruiting teachers from urban areas and offering incentives for them to work in rural schools so that you get better teachers. And then I would also ensure that teacher training programs are regularly conducted to improve teaching standards in the long term. So all the 4 dimensions is covered. Identify the problem, you analyze the impact, solution, sustainability. In one of my friends' interview, he was actually asked how he will overcome resistance to a new policy aimed at improving police accountability. I've also given IPS preference. He's also given IPS preference, and this question was asked to one of my friend. So the question was how you will overcome resistance to a new policy aimed at improving police accountability. Take it as an question and try to frame your answer. So he explained that he will work with police unions to ensure that officers can understand the benefit of the policy, and that he will streamline the reporting processes to make compliance easier for officers. Like that, whatever you feel like based on the structure which is given to you, you can use. Or I'll give you the specific one for law enforcement. See guys, again, when it comes to law enforcement, implementing new policies often involves challenges related to compliance, resistance to change, and coordination between different units. That's a big challenge and a hurdle when it comes to police force. So this is something which you can follow. Again, implementing new crime prevention strategies. So when new crime prevention strategies such as community policing or data-driven crime mapping are introduced, law enforcement agencies may face resistance from officers who are used to traditional methods. So we'll see how you're going to deal with that. Okay, similarly, ensuring compliance with new regulations. So implementing new regulations such as body cameras, okay, for officers, or new accountability protocols, which require buy-in from officers and supervisors. So resistance to change can delay implementation and reduce the effectiveness of the policy. Now, addressing resistance to reforms, what can you do? We need to discuss upon that also. That's another dimension. So police reforms aimed at increasing transparency or improving public relations, often face resistance from within the department actually. So particularly the officers who fear that these changes may impact their operational autonomy. So these are again challenges that you need to face. For example, if you are asked how to implement a community policing strategy in a district, what you can say? The 4 steps. Okay, follow the 4 steps. So I'll give you the answer. One of the main challenge in implementing community policing in the resistance, is the resistance from officers who are used to traditional policing methods. The resistance can lead to poor execution of the new strategy and limit its effectiveness. To overcome this, I would conduct training sessions to familiarize officers with the benefits of community policing and ensure that they have the resources they need to engage effectively with the community. I would also establish regular feedback mechanisms to monitor the progress of the initiative and address any issues that arise. Simple. In one of my interview, they asked, my option was IPS. So they asked, I would handle, how I will handle, resistance to a new policy on police accountability. Before also, I think I have discussed to my friend also, this question was asked. Normally they used to ask this. Okay, so you can explain from your perspective that you will engage with officers early in the process to understand their concern and provide clear explanation of the benefits of the policy, and also offer support to ensure that officers complied with the new regulations. Let's move on to the general governance. See guys, again, in general governance, policy implementation challenges often arise in sectors like education, healthcare, infrastructure development, etc. So these challenges can be addressed by a streamlining process, improving resource allocation, and engaging stakeholders. So let's talk about that. Here is how you can approach these challenges. 1 minute, guys. Hello? There. So the first one, implementing education policies. Right, okay. See, one of the challenge in implementing education policy is, ensuring that the schools have the necessary resources, such as trained teachers, very important, right? And infrastructure and learning materials. So civil servants must ensure that resources are allocated efficiently and that schools are regularly monitored to ensure compliance. Coming to next one, implementing healthcare reforms. See guys, healthcare reforms often face challenges related to a lack of medical personnel. Okay, that is one thing. That's the most important thing. It could be doctors, nurses, assistants, I'm so sorry. Then resources, equipments, infrastructure, especially in rural areas. Even the private sector is also not interested in rural areas. So solutions will be like recruiting more healthcare workers, improving access to medical supplies, and ensuring that the healthcare facilities are adequately funded. Now coming to infrastructure development project. Infrastructure projects often, face delays due to bureaucratic red tapeism. Then again, the most important issue will be related to land acquisition. That issues related to land acquisition. Or it could be lack of coordination between different agencies. So what you need to do, streamlining the approval process, ensure timely resource allocation, involving the local stakeholders in decision making, and that can help overcoming these challenges. For example, let's say if you're asked how you will implement a new policy aimed at improving public transportation in a city. Okay, so new policy you need to implement, which is aimed at improving public transportation in a city. So what you can say is identify the challenge first. So one of the major challenge in implementing public transportation policy is the coordination between different government departments, such as urban planning, transportation, and finance. So you identified the challenge. Now tell the impact. So the poor coordination can lead to delays and inefficient use of resources. And then you give the solution. So to address this, I would set up a coordination committee with representatives from all relevant departments to ensure smooth communication and resource allocation. Then you also ensure sustainability. You can say, I would also involve local stakeholders such as transport operators and commuters to ensure that the new system meets their requirements. To one of my friend, I'm taking one example from one of my friends. So he was asked how he will implement a healthcare policy aimed at improving maternal health in rural areas. So you need to have an idea about maternal health and maternal health issues. Even if you don't have any idea, this is what normally people will think is about they're asking maternal health issues. You need to talk about maternal health, maternal mortality rate, and other things. No, absolutely no. They are not at all interested in you talking about what is the maternal mortality ratio, infant mortality ratio, etc. You need to get into this structure and answer the question. You don't want to give absolutely any figures or numbers. Don't break your head for that. Okay. So he explained that he will address the resource constraints. So this is what they're asking. How? By resource constraint is the main problem. So he will address that by recruiting healthcare workers from nearby urban areas and ensure that the medical supplies were regularly delivered to rural areas. So that problem you need to identify, impact you need to identify, provide the solution, ensure sustainability. Don't want to talk about maternal mortality ratio, comparison with other countries and other things. No. One of my personal experience I'll share now. Again, in one of my interview, I was asked how I will implement a policy aimed at improving sanitation facilities in a rural district. I've discussed this before also. So sanitation facilities in rural district. Okay, so I began by identifying the challenge, explaining that the lack of adequate infrastructure and delays in funding allocation are major obstacles to policy implementation. So you're identifying the challenge. I then explained how these challenges affected the implementation process, leading to delays in constructing sanitation facilities and poor maintenance of existing ones. So you analyze the impact. Then after that, I proposed a solution by suggesting the establishment of public-private partnership to fund and build the sanitation facilities, along with streamlining the process for disbursing, the funds to the contractors properly. So solution. And finally, I also emphasized the importance of sustainability by proposing regular monitoring and maintenance of the sanitation facilities. And that will ensure that they continue to serve the public in the long term. So you ensure long-term sustainability also. So this is how you need to do. So interview need to be structured. Interview need to be planned. It is not something which is naturally occurred. And he got that and I got this. No. If you are going, 10 of you are going, 10 of you should get same mark if you follow my strategy. It is not that they are guiding you. You are guiding them if you follow my strategy. Perfect. Okay. Now, see, in conclusion, what we can say, the policy implementation challenges are common in governance, so that civil servants must be able to identify these challenges, and you need to be in a position to analyze the impact, propose practical solutions, and ensure long-term sustainability also. Whether you are implementing healthcare reforms or infrastructure project or law enforcement policies, it's important to streamline the processes, allocate resources efficiently, and engage stakeholders to ensure long-term success. Okay, now what you need to do is practice answering questions, take up any problem or take up anything which we have already discussed and answer it in your own way, record it and send to us. So that's about the session. Any questions we can discuss now? I'll unmute one by one. For that, let me stop recording.